What is up, my little Deinos? Vepsis, your coach of the LCK Dragons, and I'm finally back for my UBL D-League Season 1 Week 6 battle versus Blazin Squid and his team being the Toronto Totodiles. Now, I do want to apologize for the lateness of this upload. There's been quite a few things that have gone through off screen and in my real life that kinda influenced me not to be able to keep this upload on time. The main issue that I came across with was at Saturday, immediately when I had this battle done at very late with Blazin Squid. My computer, actually my old computer that is, actually just went completely shattered with the hard drive, I think. And considering the computer was like over 5 years old, if not older than that, it basically was at the point that it was better for me to get rid of that thing and be able to find investment or money basically to buy a relatively new one. It's not necessarily a new computer, but it's at least a lot newer than my previous one that I was able to now afford to buy for myself. And it took a couple of days after Saturday that I was actually able to get this computer, and then I had to start to getting everything, all the programs that I essentially need for my computer, including OBS and everything like that, and actually get the settings going properly. So all these things, including considering that I also have internship going on my weekdays, etc. So many things kind of came across so that I wasn't able to upload this on time. So that is my brief explanation, so my apologies yet again, but hopefully this battle will be enjoyable for you to watch. This was a pretty cool battle, a lot of hectic things going on with the game in itself. But before we go into the replay itself, I'm gonna be going through the team of 6 that I brought, and also go through quickly my opponent's roster, including the 6 mods that he brought and the ones that he didn't bring, and basically have a quicker version of the pre-game that I normally do on my videos. I won't be doing it this week just to save some time. But going through my opponent's roster, starting with the mods that he brought, he has Mega Charizard X, Slowking, Alola Ninetales, SlackOut 10%, Tornado Stereo as his C captain as well, Bishop, and then going through the mods that he didn't bring, he also had Mienshao, Galvantula, Donphan, Silvally, Alphonse, and Lurantis, finaling out his roster and being his second and final C captain. And going through now the team of 6 that I brought for this matchup, starting from left to right, the first mod that I decided to bring is gonna be Rotom-Heat, and it's gonna be fully specially defensive, holding leftovers with Volt Switch, Overheat, Sleep Talk, and Rest. And this set is here to hardwall things like Alola Ninetales and Tornado Stereo, for example, that he brought to this game, while at the same time with its stabs be able to pressure somewhat things like Slowking and Bishop, for example. It was also capable of checking something like Lurantis and the Galvantula if one of those would have been brought to this game itself. So very key member on the team, and I decided to go with the Rest Talk as its form of recovery because I didn't think that the Pain Split will be reliable enough for me in this matchup, considering how much it's gonna be pressured and relied on checking so many things. So that is the kind of the idea with the Rotom-Heat. Then we are running a physically defensive Lander Stereo, holding leftovers, Impulse Nature with Earthquake, Protect, Stealth Rocks, and U-Turn. This thing is there to functioning as a physical defensive pivot around things like Charizard X and SlackOut 10%, while at the same time providing me a Volt Turn core between the Rotom-Heat as well, and giving me Stealth Rocks as well, which are very good versus my opponent's roster in itself. And I figure that they are most efficient to put on Lander Stereo when I'm running it as the set that I'm running. The idea with Protect is just giving me extra turn of recovery with leftovers as long as I have them intact, which I try to prioritize to have on them. and while at the same time doing that, I potentially wear down my opponent a little bit further than normally I would be able to if the toxic spikes are being up, which I'm gonna be bringing on my Gopher Kriegers. But before we go into Gopher Kriegers, the third member of the team is gonna be Forgotten, the current black, and it's gonna be holding Haban Berry as its item. And we are running Adamant Nature, almost max attack. Well, basically max attack. It's not 252, but pretty close there. Just enough attack investment that I felt comfortable with. And then we have a lot of SPDF investment as well to live Moonblast from a Specs, Alola Ninetales, I believe from full. If not from full after Stealth Rocks, it was one of the two. And with the Haban Berry, I basically function either as a failsafe to Charizard X if it gets out of hand, or it can also function as a lure set to the Charizard X as well, or to the Psycho 10%, which does help my Landorstarian a little bit on the workload, that it doesn't have to deal with both of them throughout the whole game itself, hopefully. And current black can help in that regard, while at the same time functioning as the wall breaker of the team. And then the fourth member of the team is gonna be Gopher Kriegers, which I did touch on already that it does pack toxic spikes on it. And the other three moves that we are gonna be running are Pain Split, Shadow Ball, and Hidden Power Fighting. Hidden Power Fighting purely for the buy shop, which is pretty obvious, and Pain Split for recovery and Shadow Ball for the stab. The item is gonna be Colba Berry for the knockouts potentially coming into its way, and we are running basically max defense, max HP on this set, as functioning as a defensive check mainly for the Mienshao, and also a spin blocker potentially versus the Donphan if that would have been brought, which I thought would be brought into this game, but he didn't bring it, but it also functioned in that role if necessary. Then the fifth member of the team is gonna be Mega Lopunny with Fake Out, Frustration, High Jump Kick, and Protect, with Adamant Nature, max attack, and then very standard spread from there. And the idea with Fake Out plus Protect, this enables me to wear down my opponent yet again through toxic spikes, or to be able to gain or stall out a little bit of Aurora Veil turns if he is able to get them up, because I didn't decide to bring D4 or Brick Break this week, which I did consider, but in the end I decided that I don't necessarily need them, and I rather have my hazards up if possible with dual hazards in Stealth Rocks and Toxic Spikes. So you're gonna be seeing that my formal remover will be through Starmie's Rapid Spin. I didn't put Brick Break on any of my mons, so this is kinda like my one way to wear down the Aurora Veils if possible, and rock out some Toxic Spikes damage if they are in effect throughout this battle, and just functioning as a great revenge killer as Mega Lopunny normally does, and able to outspeed everything naturally. Then the final member of the team is gonna be Starmie. Modest nature but not heavily special attack invested. A lot of HP and a lot of speed, holding leftovers, and a nature cure as its ability. And we are running Surf, Thunderbolt, Rapid Spin, and Recover, and this thing is there to functioning as a pivot and a hazard remover, mainly as a pivot versus a Slowking as long as he doesn't pack Shadow Ball or Grass Knot. But even if he happens to carry those, I do have bulk to live those relatively well, and then I have a defensive answer to that kind of attacking move from my opponent if he happens to go for that move in my current black, and I can go from there. But mainly it's providing me hazard control and a nice pivot versus certain things like the Slowking itself, and just being overall just a nice option to have in the back versus the other things. And make sure the Stealth Rocks are not on my side of the field, because I do have few things that are weak to Stealth Rocks. But now let's go to and see how this battle is gonna be turning out, and I'm gonna be leading off with my Rotom-Heat because it matches up the best versus majority of the things, and the things that it doesn't match up too well versus I have a defensive response, mainly in my Landorstarian, because the only two things that Rotom-Heat doesn't match up well versus were the Psychic 10% and the Charizard X, which he did decide to lead up with. So here I'm gonna be immediately swapping out into my Landers there. I didn't even bother to click Volt Switch because I wanted to make sure if he goes for the attacking move, Rotom-Heat doesn't have to take any prior chip, just in case, even though I have the rest talk set. And I wanted to make sure if he happens to also run Substitute on it, that I hard swap into my Landers there to get the Intimidate off before he would have gone for the Substitute. But that's not gonna be the case on first turn that what he goes for. He actually goes for the Dragon Dash immediately, and here I'm basically forced to click Earthquake. I could have thought about trying to go for Stealth Rocks here because I can live one hit and expecting him to be forced out. But when this threat is in front of me, I have to click Earthquake, and his hardest hitting move versus me would be Flare Blitz, which at neutral, because I do get the Intimidate off first, but with the Dragon Dash he gets his attack back at neutral. Flare Blitz from a max attack Jolly Charizard X should be doing 63% at max. It's between 53 to 63%. And then he takes over 20% of recall from the Flare Blitz, and Earthquake is an easy OCO from there. So that is gonna be my initial play that I have to go for. I cannot afford to over predict in front of this thing, and he is gonna go for the Flare Blitz, and you're gonna see that the HP on my Landers drops way too fast, and that is because it's a critical hit, and this, not gonna lie, was a little bit annoying. And throughout the actual battle I had to take a deep breath for a minute after this went down, and I was like, okay, this happened. What do I do now in order to win? How do I respond to this thing? And how do I kinda essentially win from here? Because I lose an important member of my team, and I lose my chance to kill this thing immediately, and I kept my Landers staying alive. And with the leftovers plus Protect, I would have been able to get myself even to over half HP eventually, or quite relatively quickly. And lose my Stealth Rocker as well in that regard, and my check to Psychic 10%. So that critical hit was quite unfortunate, and I'm basically forced to go into my current black. I could not play around and gone into anything else. This thing has the Berry, and this is where unfortunately I have to use it as a failsafe to this Charizard X, as he chooses to stay in. Not sure why he decided to stay in. I guess I would assume that he didn't feel like he had a defensive switching to this thing, and he'd rather get the damage while he's in front of my current black, and then revenge kill with either Ninetales or Psychic 10%. But I take that any day of the week at this point, considering my position, because losing my Landers there and like that to the critical hit, I didn't have a defensive response to Charizard X at all, and I don't have a defensive answer to this Psychic 10% either, depending on what move he clicks. But because he chose to bring this thing in, I have to basically stay in, hope to get like a minimal roll if he chooses to click the 1000 arrows. But because he clicks Outrage, he does manage to kill me easily because I don't have the Berry anymore. But what this means is that if he's Choice Scarf, I know my Mega Lopunny outspeeds it and kills it easily with Frustration. My Frustration does 100% minimum with the attacking investment what I have to a Psychic 10% with a HP investment that I would expect it to have. So I'm not gonna be messing around here with going for a Fake Out. I immediately go for the Frustration. There's no point really wasting a turn on Fake Out. And you're gonna be seeing that he is not gonna be a Choice Scarf. He is probably Choice Banded, because you're gonna also going to see that he's not gonna be Focus Sash either and be able to live this, and we do manage to take this thing out. So quite quickly in 4 turns, 4 mons went down, 2 from both sides. So it's a very quick paced battle so far, due to, honestly, for my behalf, I lost my resources a lot quicker than I was supposed to do to the upgrade. But we're gonna be working from here. I had to kind of adjust on the fly my game plan, because my initial game plan with pivoting offense and hazard stacking approach went completely out of the window after I lost my Landorus like that. But now he brought his Tornadus in, decides to go for the knockoff, expecting my Lopunny to be forced out, which was a good play, and then he went for the knockoff or to the psychic afterwards to the knockoff, and I went for the Volt Switch slowly with my Rotom-Heat to be able to gain my Mega Lopunny in versus the Tornadus, and here I was fully anticipating frustration to kill this Tornadus unless he's like a Chilamberry or he happens to be very physically defensive invested, which I didn't think would be his set with Tornadus this week, even though he shows to be relatively bulky based on how he was able to take the Volt Switch. So here my biggest misplay in a hindsight is going to be that I didn't go for the fake out, because you're gonna be able to see that he lives the frustration barely, but he does live it, revealing to have Rocky Helmet, and he goes for the Air Slash, and I was, oh shit, did I make a misplay that makes my Lopunny to die here? But we do live on 22 HP here, and the reason why I went for the frustration was not only because I was expecting it to kill the Tornadus, but it was also ensure that if he dares to swap out into Slowking, which is not physically defensive, I had a very good chance of two-shotting that thing. So I was intentionally going for the frustration, thinking that I two-shot everything from here. But in hindsight, obviously it was a misplay, guys. Should have clicked the fake out, because then I would have been able to avoid the Air Slash damage that I had to take and risk my Mega Lopunny like that, because now the Rocky Helmet is being really annoying that I'm so low on my HP and I have to swap out into my Rotom-Heat, but my opponent makes a double into the Alola Ninetales. Not sure if he was predicting this or he wanted to just gain the Regenerator with the Tornadus and then coming on the second turn after gaining the Regenerator, but either way we are here, and he's gonna be going for the Aurora Veil in front of my Rotom-Heat, as I'm gonna be clicking actually Rest here, just to make sure that my Rotom-Heat is as healthy as possible, and I figured that even if he gets the Aurora Veil up, I should be good to go as long as the Bice Shop is not coming in and start sword dancing all over the place. That would be the worst case scenario that could really happen here from my point of view. But here I'm gonna be clicking Rest Talk, hoping that I would get like a Volt Switch if he goes into Slowking, or he happens to go into Bice Shop or stated with the Alolan Ninetales. Hopefully I then get the Overheat, but it doesn't really turn out like that, because he went to the Slowking and then I get the Overheat on the Slowking itself. So obviously not the most ideal, but I'm able to burn at least one turn of rest here, and my Rotom-Heat is very healthy after gaining the health with the rest in itself. And here I actually decided to go into my Kofa over to Starmie, because my biggest worry as he brought this Slowking in was that he would be some sort of setup variant, and I wanted to make sure that if it's like a Trick Room set or a Calm Mind or Nasty Plot or anything like that, I want to make sure that the mod that is coming in is able to do the most damage that I have available for myself. The best mod available for myself that I brought into this game to nuke this thing would have been the current Black, but because all the things turn out in the early game, I also lost my main best way to really kill this thing immediately. So I had to go into Kofa, banking on the fact that he doesn't start Calm Minding all over the place and he's dual attack, cause that would be very bad. But you're gonna be seeing that he's gonna be swapping out actually and goes into Bice Shop. Now I'm not sure that if he was predicting here my Starmie potentially, but that could have been potentially what he was going for. I don't think he was necessarily expecting my Kofa coming here, but it's gonna be working out for him, and it's gonna be a little annoying for me, cause now I'm basically forced to stay in versus this Bice Shop and go for the hidden power fighting. I do know that I should be able to most likely take 2 hits unless he crits me, and he does get a crit through my Combo Berry, which means that depending on what he said he could be, there's a chance he can kill me on a following turn, and I cannot be able to go for 2 hidden power fightings, which would be 2-shotting this Bishop even through Aurora Well. But you're gonna see that after I get critted by his Bishop on my Go for Kriegers, as I go for my hidden power fighting, I'm gonna actually crit him back, and that thing gets obliterated, and its HP drops so much faster than I was thinking. I was like, oh shit, did I actually get a crit here? And I did, so I was like, thank God I get lucky finally in this game, because not that Combo Berry crit or the hit through the Combo Berry crit really mattered too much in a big scheme of things, but because the crit already happened on the Landers-Therian in itself, it kind of started to bug me a little bit that is this gonna be one of those games as I had in the NPL Week 3 versus IA, but so far at least I'm doing decently still versus him, and I was able to get myself in a position that he only has 3 months remaining after the both dragons were gone, and now the Bison in itself, and I haven't actually lost a month since then. And here, basically as he brought his Tornado-Therian in, I swap into my Rotom-Heat, but he makes his double into the Alola Ninetales, knowing that his Aurora Bell is going to run out here, which means that he is not likely on this set. And to me, the biggest suspicion that I had on Alola Ninetales all this time, that if it's gonna be brought into this game and it's not like a bulky Aurora Veil set to set up something else, I really thought that it could be Choice Scarf versus me, because when you think about my first 3 picks being Landers-Therian, Current Black and Mega Lopunny, Choice Scarf Ninetales has a field day versus those 3 once they are being worn down. Landers-Therian doesn't need to get worn down. Mega Lopunny depends on the spread, needs to get a little bit chipped. And Current Black needs to basically get a little bit chipped here. Potentially. So, because he didn't reveal to be Light Clay, I started to think that this could be potentially a Choice Scarf or Alola Ninetales, and that's gonna influence how I play around this thing. But in the end, it's gonna be always Rotom-Heat that I really rely on here. Defensively wise to deal with that thing, and Rotom-Heat is actually in a very strong position because he has Tornado-Therian and Alola Ninetales as 2 of his last 3 mons, and Rotom-Heat completely half-walls them because he doesn't seem to have taunt on the Tornado-Therian, so there's really nothing he can do here to avoid my Rotom-Heat to be able to be healthy. But every single time he's able to get the Aurora Veil up, it's a little bit annoying for me to start actually racking up these last 3 remaining of the kills throughout this battle. But now I do go into my Starmie versus the Slowking, and now I'm kind of banking on the fact that okay, hopefully he is not like a Calm Mind or Nasty Plot, but if he happens to be like a Nasty Plot, for example, I really just need my Starmie right now to burn these Aurora Veil turns and chip it down to the point that where either my Mega Lopunny or my Gopher Kriegers can revenge kill it, depending on its health that it's going to be at. But as I go for the Thunderbolt and as the Aurora Veil is up and I'm basically doing jack shit to this thing, he's gonna reveal to have Trick Room on this set, and that's gonna basically mean that outside of Trick Room, I would anticipate my Gopher Kriegers now outspeeding it every single time, because he's probably running like a Quiet Nature or some kind of like a minus speed nature with the Trick Room in itself. And with that, as long as the Trick Room is not up, every single member of my team can outspeed the Slowking, but as long as he has this up, I kinda have to hope on that he is not like a worst case scenario set versus the team that I have left. But he reveals to have Psychic, potentially being the hardest hitting move versus my Starmie, and all of a sudden a mon that I didn't think on team review when we went into this battle is gonna be the most initial or essential member of this team, barring removing some hazards and pivot around certain things. this Starmie seems to also be able to beat the Slowking 1v1 if he doesn't have the coverage to hit me. So based on that, I was actually doing a small prediction here. Going for the Surf, expecting him to swap into Alola Ninetales here on the Thunderbolt, cause the Slowking didn't have anything to hit me and it's getting worn down through my hits and the hail in itself too, cause it didn't seem to have leftovers on it. So I made a small prediction there, but it didn't really matter in the big scheme of things, cause the only thing that I was able to do going for the Surf over Thunderbolt was to able to do a little bit more chip on this Ninetales, but it took like 20% out of it. So I'm basically playing a little bit of long game here, kind of finding myself a opportunity to getting the kill versus one of his last 3 members of the team, and basically put him in a situation that he cannot break through my Rotom-Heat and my Starmie together quite at all, because Rotom-Heat is walling 2 of his last 3 mons and Starmie is walling the Slowking, so he is essentially stuck here if he doesn't have any sort of setup move on the Slowking. And as the Ninetales came in and he went for the Moonblast, you saw that I went for the rest, and now with the sleep time I do get fortunately the Volt Switch, which is huge, cause the Ninetales did not actually set up the Aurora Veil, which means that the Volt Switch did a lot more this time around on this Slowking, and now I basically put him in a range that he would die to my Thunderbolt for my Starmie, which I do go into. And here he's basically forced out here, and I think this time around I do go for the safe Thunderbolt because the Aurora Veil is not up, so this means that the Thunderbolt will be doing quite decent chunk to this Alola Ninetales. I think that's like a 25% maybe, or like a 30% to this Ninetales, putting it pretty much to the half of health. And here I actually go for the Surf in front of the Ninetales, cause I wasn't expecting him to have Freeze Dry anymore, cause he hasn't gone for it, or he would go for the Aurora Veil again, and on that turn that he would go for it, I could get the damage on it and basically see that if he's Choice Scarf or not. But he made a double into the Slowking, taking the Surf relatively well, but now he's basically forced to come in again, cause he cannot beat me 1v1 and the Aurora Veil is not up at all. And now I'm able to go for the Thunderbolt yet again, doing significant damage to the Alola Ninetales yet again. And like last time, I do intend to stay in, because even if he happens to reveal the Freeze Dry, because I am able to outspeed it if he's not Choice Scarf, I can always kill it, and if he happens to be Choice Scarf, I always lift the Freeze Dry from the Ninetales unless he crit me again. So either way, it was my best play to finally finish on one of his last 3 remaining of the mons, and now he has 2 mons remaining in the Tornado Styrian and in the Slowking, so the Regen Core is still to be dealt with. But speaking of Regenerator, here I actually make a kind of like a prediction game, or a prediction, him going for the knockoff in front of my Starmie, and I go into my Go for Creekers, eliminate the Regenerator through that, which means that the chip damage on the hill will be there to stay, or any potential other chip damage that I can do to it. But immediately then, after he went for the knockoff, now I make my swap into the Rotom-Heat, take it the Air Slash really easily, and now I'm basically in a turn that he has to take another turn of health, which means that he has taken 12% of health now between these 2 turns, and now I can burn one of my rest or my rest turns here and see that which move I could potentially get, and I do get Overheat. And while I would have preferred to have the Volt Switch this Overheat as well, because he has now Mummy ability and not Regenerator, he is basically at like 10% or 50%, which means that it's very easy for me to revenge kill if it happens to be a last one. And here I'm easily able to go for the Volt Switch, and he decides to stay in and not swap into the Slowking at this point. So we were able to finish off the Tornado Styrian. So finally, after having a very quick start to this game and then gone into a little bit of stalemate, between each other, where I honestly was very strong position all the time after his dragons went down. But because I lost my Landers Therian so quickly and my Korean Black, I had to play this long game with my Mons and play really smallly this late game, since I had to really adapt my end game goal, cause the team plan that I had basically went completely out of the window through the crit from the Toys to my Landers there, and therefore the hazard stacking route that I had and my resources that I thought I would be having throughout this battle really weren't there for this late game. But we were able to win this game in 4-0 fashion versus Blazin Squid, and good game to Blazin Squid. I am somewhat happy that I was able to perform a lot better this week than last week. Regards to the... Sorry about that, my phone decides to go off, but I won't be answering that just yet. But as I was saying about the game in itself, I'm relatively happy that this game turned out a lot better how I was able to play it than the last week. I think my last week versus the Thumb Brother 2 was probably my weakest performance so far, but I think this performance regards to how I played this game was a really good bounce back from that. Unfortunately, the team in itself, which I was very confident with and really happy with that I brought, and I thought it was going to be very efficient in this game, I didn't really get the chance to showcase on its fullest potential, but either way we were still able to manage to get the 4-0 win, even through some hack scenarios, which I'm honestly really happy with. And it seems somewhat also maybe a little bit more rewarding that you had to adjust to so much due to some RNG factors and still maintain your composure and able to close out the game in a relatively high differential fashion in that sense. So we are able to move on to 6-0 with a plus 21 differential, and this should basically mean that we are in playoffs, I believe. Hopefully the Power Rankings crew can confirm me and others as well if I'm basically now officially claim my playoff spot, but I would like to believe that I have so far. But either way, this is gonna be actually final game of a couple of my mods that I brought this week. On the trade deadline I actually end up making 3 transactions, well 1 trade and 2 transactions to be exact. But I'm not gonna be spoiling them yet. I'm gonna be breaking those down hopefully on Friday, day before my week 7 battle versus Serene Grace, where they come into effect. And I will explain why the undefeated team at 6-0 plus 21 even bothers to make any kind of changes for the playoff run. But I'm gonna be touching on that once we get there on Friday, what were my motives and my ideas with these changes and what I think is gonna be better in the long run for the playoff run that I'm really expecting myself at this point to be having. But either way, thank you all for watching, thank you all for your patience. Hopefully you stayed tuned and still came through and watched this game even though it was delayed regards to the upload. And until Friday upload for the transaction video, thank you all for watching, and until then I'll be see you guys later.